guys, so I've been thinking recently about the phenomenon of memory planning, and I wanted to discuss it with you. And around the same time, a couple of days ago, I got a comment from someone asking me whether I keep my old planners, and if so, for how long. And they were saying that they couldn't find much information about that on YouTube, about people discussing that. And I thought that's a related issue and also a really interesting one. So I just wanted to address the whole planner as memory keeping system and keeping old planners and my current thoughts on all of that. So a bit of history, as usual. As a lot of you know, I've been using a paper planner for almost 20 years, but until 2 years ago, I never kept them. There were two reasons for that. One was that I've always been something of a minimalist in that I tend to just want to get rid of things if I'm not using them. And the other reason is that up until recently, my planners were never really items of beauty. I always had very cheap, either bound or spiral bound planners that, bad paper quality, didn't look really nice. Until I got into the planner community about 3 years ago when I first started using Moleskines. And that's when everything changed. So I think that's when I first started kind of becoming more aware of a planner as an important or, precious part of my life. Even though I'd always had a planner and always liked using one, and it never occurred to me not to use a paper planner. It wasn't really something that I valued. It was just totally functional. And at the end of the year, I would just put it in the recycling. But when I got my first Moleskine, which is this one, this was a 2014 large daily planner. And at the same time, I got my first Filofax Flex, which is what I kept this in. I all of a sudden started to see my planner as a really treasured possession and something that I loved to look at and was beautiful. And that's when everything really kind of transformed in my mind. And so when the year was over, for the first time ever, I didn't get rid of this. I kept it. And I'm really glad that I did because, now, almost, 2014, 2015, 2016, 3 years later, I have this to look back on. And it's really valuable to me, for one, because it just kind of shows a snapshot of what I was doing then. And obviously I do have memories, but I don't remember all of the little things that I was doing. And I think because when you're planning, you're often, especially if you're planning like this, where you're just, scrolling things down and you're not using stickers, you're very unself-conscious in that, it never occurred to me at the time, even though I did love this and I kind of valued it more than I'd valued my previous planners. I never thought of this as something that I would be going back to later to reference in subsequent years. So it just has sort of all of the different aspects of my daily life, and I can remember, oh yeah, I was taking a Judeo-Spanish course then, I forgot about that. Or, oh, that's interesting, this is what I was working on at the time. It just really kind of shows what my life was, particularly my work life, but at this point I only had one planner, hard as it is to imagine, but this kind of captured everything that was sort of important that was going on in my life. And it also has some really, really precious things, like the day that we went to pick up our dog Panda from the foster care where he was staying, and stuff that is priceless now. So I feel like I wouldn't want to get rid of this. And that's something that I had never felt before about a planner, even though I'm sure that if I still had my earlier planners and I went back and, looked at something from, 1999 or 2000, I would be similarly struck, even more so because it's so much further back in time. But because I've always been, I've been adverse to collecting clutter, I've just always wanted to get rid of things the minute I didn't need them anymore. So this is something of a change for me. But I then moved on to a Hobonichi cousin, and this was my 2015 cousin, and I've kept this as well because much as I couldn't get rid of this, and it seemed so important to keep, this seems the same. And so this is only from 2 years ago, or nearly 2 years ago. But again, I can see this is what I was doing. This is what was going on. This was Passover. These were the, things that I had to get for Passover. It's a very, I think, vivid way to somehow bring back memories that you didn't know that you were looking for necessarily. So now, this year, for the first time, I've had two planners, a work and a personal planner. And I've kept my 2016 weeks, which is my personal planner. And, a lot of you have seen this. This is obviously only quite recently finished because I just switched over to my new one in November, end of November. But I didn't want to get rid of this for the same reason, because a whole year of my life has gone into this. And I feel like because I love these books and I loved them for the whole year that I was using them, that I don't want to get rid of them now. So this has kind of led to me starting to think about the purpose of planning differently than I ever did before. And it's kind of come at the same time that I've started noticing videos about memory planning, because I think particularly with the Happy Planner, that memory planning has become a really big thing in the planner community. And I know that there were people doing it before, and that there are people who do it with planners other than the Happy Planner, but the Happy Planner really has the kind of memory planning audience in mind, I think. So now I watch a lot more videos about memory planning than I ever did before. And at first I was like, what is this? I don't understand. What's memory planning? Like memories, planning, how do they go together? And it was actually, even after watching videos, I still didn't understand. I was like, you're putting photos in and you're writing down your to-dos. Like, I just don't get it. And it was James who explained it to me in the way that I understood it best. He was like, yeah, it's like you're closing the loop. So you write down, go to Starbucks, and then you might glue in the receipt to sort of look back on the visit and say, so I did go to Starbucks and this is the receipt to prove it, and that kind of sparks memories. So I thought that this kind of idea of closing the loop was quite a nice illustration of the idea of memory planning. He totally got it. He was just like, yeah, I understand it. It's just you're planning and then you're kind of showing what happens after the plans came to pass, I guess. So I was like, that's interesting. And I think that I kind of moved a little bit more in that direction. For one thing, because now I'm sort of conscious of the idea that I want to keep some of these planners. And for another thing, because I've got into decorating more than I ever had before. So with my daily planner, for example, as many of you know, I became addicted to Mambi stickers, and I love the value packs, and I started putting lots of stickers on this. And obviously this is not beautiful in the way that people who make really elaborate spreads that are, themed and coordinated are. This is just kind of random putting down stickers, but I like it. I think it looks nice. And when you've started putting stickers on things and you're thinking about the way that it looks aesthetically, then I kind of feel like you've invested a bit more into it. So this is still quite messy because this is my daily to-do list planner. So it's not like I'm kind of designing this with permanence in mind, but it made me start to think about that. And so for 2017, some of you have already seen this before. I'm so excited because today is the first day that this has actually kicked in, and I'd already pre-decorated it because I was so keen on using it, but today it's finally actually started to be valid. So this is a Leuchtturm A5 planner that I bought with the express purpose of using it as a pretty planner, a weekly pretty planner, which is something that I'd never had before, really. Well, that's not exactly true. I'd had this home planner, which you've all seen before, and this was the only planner for a long time that I put stickers on. And you can see it's still the same sort of messy, uncoordinated style, but it's not themed or anything like that. But this I did kind of have in mind to keep because it's so colorful and I'd put in all this work. So this is another planner that I've been thinking of keeping. And again, it kind of sort of crystallizes moments in time that you don't necessarily think are important, but then when you look back on it, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. And I think even though it's not necessarily like grand or, major events, even the little things, it's like, that was Tails' birthday. And I think, maybe like a year or 5 years, it will be really meaningful to look back and see that. Even if at the time when you're planning, you don't think of them as being any other than like kind of mundane things. And I think like for me, that works really well. It's this kind of sort of unself-conscious memory planning, I guess, where I'm not thinking like, right, this is something I want to be able to look back on. Because I feel like the things that you might think are important at the time are not necessarily the things that you might want to be reminded of years later. I'm not sure. Not that I think that there's anything wrong with the more sort of traditional memory planning, which I don't really do. Partly because I just like can't be bothered, and the idea of taking photos and, like kind of documenting things intentionally is just like somehow beyond my capability. But I think that that's okay because I feel like even these everyday things years later will become meaningful. Anyway, so this is the first planner where I decided to have a weekly planner, a week on 2 pages. The other one is a week on 1 page. So this is a week on 2 pages, like kind of a traditional weekly planner, expressly designed to give me a week overview, but all with stickers, and specifically all with Mambi stickers. So I just wanted to do that because I got really into the Mambi stickers, and if you saw my video on my dilemma of whether to decorate my A6 or not, my A6 Hobonichi, you will know that I was concerned about putting a whole bunch of stickers on this because it can get really bulky. And for 2017, I've ordered the full year version, and I didn't want it to become like that big. And also because this is such a functional planner, I just want to be able to make to-do lists on it. So I like to have some decoration, but I think that this is a bit much for it, and it just doesn't really, I decided I felt like it didn't really suit the paper as well. So I wanted to have a planner where I could use all of the awesome stickers that are in the Mambi value packs. So like, for example, hydrate. I don't keep track of hydration in this because it's just my to-do list, as I've said. So I thought this would be the perfect place for a lot of things that I couldn't fit in any other planner. So now that I've got this, and you can see what a colorful carnival is going on here, I really, really love this. I like the look of it. I like the idea of having a pretty planner. And I think that this is just the sort of thing that after a year, I love the idea of being able to flip through this and see all of the colorful spreads. And I think this is something that I haven't ever really had before, because I've never had a pretty planner that I've stuck to, that's been bound, that I've been able to look back after a whole year and admire. And I think that's really cool when you see people flip through their completed Erin Condren memory planners or Happy Planner memory planners, or just planners where they have decorated spreads. I think it's really satisfying to be able to look back and see all the spreads. And once you've gone to all that trouble, then the idea of just throwing it away seems a shame, because it's like a work of art that you've created, and it also is documenting your life. So I think that this could actually be quite good as a memory planner for me, even though I'm not putting in photos and I'm not writing down what happened after the fact, but I can just go back and see, this is what I was doing and thinking at the time. And, it looks really pretty. So I kind of feel like this will be a memory planner in a way, even though it's not the classic type. And I mean, does it really matter what, I don't know why I'm even saying the classic type, because I think in the planner community, one of the things that's cool about it is that each person has their own individual take on things. So like, all of these planners are, in a way, they become memory planners if you keep them after the year is over. So the question now is how far to take it, because as you know, and you'll see in a couple of days when I do my 2017 planner lineup, I have a whole bunch of planners. So in addition to these ones that I want to keep, I'm now adding in this one, this home planner, and then possibly the daily planner. So I'm going to start my new A6 Hobonichi on the 1st of January, which I cannot wait for. I'm so excited about that. And I've already started pre-decorating it. This is how I'm thinking of decorating it. Just like kind of subtle touches, mostly with the clear Mambi stickers, because they are not quite as thick as the matte ones. So this, again, like, it's not like this is a work of art, but by the time I've had this for a whole year, and this, like, the idea of looking back and seeing this completely full and having every day kind of documenting basically what I was doing that day is really appealing. I've had this one for 6 months. This is the Avec version. And I kind of regret that it's not the full year version, because I love the idea of having a whole year together and being able to take it and archive it. And I really have enjoyed, over the course of these 6 months, flipping through this and seeing what I was doing on individual days, because even 5 or 6 months ago, I'm often surprised, like, oh, is that what I was working on? Is that what I was thinking? Like this, so like here it says get rid of 2 things. And this was because I've been trying to implement this sort of minimalism policy where if I buy something new, I have to get rid of something else that I've had, which is just, I mean, it sounds like a bit strict, but I don't adhere to it that strictly. But the idea is just to make sure that you don't end up with a whole bunch of new stuff, that you're kind of keeping things at an even level if you're happy with like how much stuff you've got in your flat. So I was like, oh, okay, I was doing that. And, it kind of reminds me of things that I've forgotten about. And so I think, again, like, even though this is just so mundane, it's just to-do lists. And often it's things like take the boys out, breakfast, tea, proofreading. It's not like really fascinating stuff, but I still think that it is documenting my life, and if I enjoy looking back on it now, then how much more so would I enjoy looking back on it in 5 or 10 years? Because I think when I was a kid, when I was 10 and 11, I used to have a diary, and it was a bound book, unsurprisingly, because I've always been a bound book person. And I used to write in it every day, and it was, it was like, this is what I did today, blah, blah, blah. And at some point, being super minimalist and wanting to have no material possessions, I got rid of them, my diaries. And, now I think, it would have been really cool to be able to read through what I was thinking and doing when I was 10 or 11, and I can't now. So the idea of keeping these things is quite appealing. But then I've got my gratitude journal / vision book. This one I don't decorate, but nevertheless, it holds kind of my thoughts on a lot of aspects of my life. This is things that I'm happy about, and this is things that I'm hoping to happen. So again, after the years gone by and you've put in all of the work of filling up the whole thing, to just put it in the recycling seems kind of a shame. That is what I've done before with the gratitude journal that I was keeping, which was the first half of my 2016 avec. So the January to June half of this book, I just put it in recycling when it was done. And I thought about it at the time. I thought, should I keep this? And I thought, I'd never kept my gratitude books before, and I'm not going to start keeping them now. And I just put it recycling, and that was it. And I don't really regret that. Sometimes I think, maybe it would be nice to have that to look back on. But it kind of clashes with my, sort of minimalist tradition of getting rid of things when I don't need them anymore. So this idea of having this big stack of planners that I keep from year to year is kind of a bit against my instincts. But at the same time, the ones that I have kept, I'm really glad that I still have them. And then things get even worse. That's right, that's not the end of the story, because I've got even more planners. So this one, I won't reveal too much about it, because I'm going to tell you what this is for in my 2017 lineup video, but I'll just give you a little preview. You can see there's a lot of decoration going on. So imagine this whole entire thing filled up. If I could make it through the whole year using this, that would be quite an achievement, and it would be a lot of stuff to look back on. So where do you stop, right? Because this is nice and satisfying and chunky, just like this one, and it holds a whole year of your life. So the issue is that now I could potentially end up with, for 2017, this gigantic stack of planners, which I have to keep because I now feel like they're housing my memories, and I don't want to just put them in recycling. Add to that, even more, this is my expense tracker. Now, at the moment, I'm not thinking of keeping this, because even though I am decorating it a little bit and it's beautiful, I'm thinking you have to draw the line somewhere. And, when you have as many planners as I do, you really can't afford to keep them all, because I would need a whole room of my flat that was just dedicated to old planner storage. I would literally have to have a planner library. And I don't really have enough room to do that, and I'm not sure if that's what I want to use the room that I have for. So I think that this is kind of an interesting question, and it's true that I haven't heard many people discuss this. So I have heard people mention in passing that they keep their old planners, but I'm not really sure what they do with them. Do they keep them on display, or do they just put them in a box? And if so, then how long do you keep them for? So this is another question. At the moment, I've only got this archive going back 3 years. I've got 2014, 2015, and then this is half of 2016, my personal half, and then the work half is in my cousin. And the reason that it hasn't been archived yet is because it's a spring cousin, and so it doesn't finish until the end of March. But when it does, I'll add it to this stack. So at one point I even thought maybe I'll just keep the big ones, the A5s, and I'll get rid of this one. But this has got so many things in it that I now feel like I would be sad to lose. It has a lot of notes about Panda, who we lost last year, and looking at the time around when he was sick and in hospital is very upsetting, and I don't like to look at it. But earlier than that, it has, just notes about just kind of random stuff about Panda, like his birthday, or he was a rescue dog, so we didn't know his birthday, but the date that we celebrated his birthday, and like it has things that I kind of feel like I'd like to keep. So I'm not really sure, because like this just seems a bit ridiculous. It's like really, really over the top to keep this many planners for 1 year. So I'm not really sure where to draw the line, because the more time goes by, as I said, I feel like the more valuable these things become, because if they are housing your memories, then, looking back at what I was doing in 2017, like 20 years from now or 30 years from now, will be that much more meaningful than, looking back a year later or 2 years later, when it's already quite interesting. So I'm really not sure about all of this, and I would be curious to hear what you think and what your solutions are, and if you have planners, if you keep your planners, how long you keep them for, and if you, if you do memory planning, like, is that all that you keep, or do you keep your kind of functional everyday planners as well? My kind of impression is, and this is not at all scientific, because I don't feel like I've heard a lot of people comment on this specifically, but I feel like more people keep their planners than get rid of them. But so I'm not really sure, because like I said, for all of these years when I used to get rid of my planners, I don't really feel like this terrible regret that I didn't keep them. But then I think that part of that maybe was because the planners themselves, the actual books, were not that nice to look at, and so they're just like kind of, old manky spiral bound books with bad paper quality that I wouldn't really kind of cherish as an object. Whereas these ones, I love them so much that the actual, the vehicles are important as well. And I think that's one of the things that's cool about, the planner community and being into planning as a hobby, is that we really appreciate the vehicle as well as just the concept of planning. So it's like, there are two things that are interesting about it. One is the information that you have in it and how it's sort of like a record of your life as it sort of built up over the year. And the other one is that if you love the actual planner, then it's always nice to be able to look back and see what that looked like as well. So like, in this case, it's this nice sturdy hardback book, and it really feels like a book, but it's like a book that has my life in it for that year. So those are my thoughts at the present moment. I don't have a solution to this question of how many planners to keep and for how long. I feel like I'm going to have to be strict with myself and decide, okay, these ones I keep, these ones I don't keep every year. Maybe it would change from year to year, but like I just keep my two main planners and I don't keep any of the rest of them or something. But then the pretty planner with all of the stickers in it seems like such a shame to get rid of that. So as you can see, here I am on the horns of another planner dilemma as usual. So I hope that you enjoyed these musings. I'll be curious to hear what you think about the matter. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back again soon. Bye!